Using loops inside of any language is pretty common if you need to repeat a series of instructions over and over again. Java provides us 4 different types of loops. We're going to look at 3 in this video: a pre-test conditional loop, a post-test conditional loop, and a standard counting loop. We'll look at the 4th type in the next video. Let's get started and see what we're going to do with these different types of loops. All right, so let's look at our pre-test loop. This is going to be our while loop. And if you've used something like Python or C and C++, you're very familiar with this. Now, with C, we can put any type of value inside of our condition we want. With Java, it needs to return a Boolean value, something like counter less than 5. And I'll say simply system.out.print counter. This is going to let us know that, hey, we're inside of our pretest loop, and it's going to let us see the current value of our counter. Now, one thing we have to make sure that we do is specify something to modify the value of counter. Otherwise, we get into an infinite loop because the value of counter never changes. What we're testing against never changes. Therefore, we never get out of our loop. If I compile and run this, you're going to notice it sees our information, and you can see it there, going 0 through 4. That's because once it hits 5, it's no longer a true condition, and we exit out. If I set the value 5 and rerun this, you're going to notice that nothing happens. And that's because our condition was false, therefore we do not run the loop body. However, if we use the post-test loop, so I say do, then I have my body, and then I put in my while container. This says I'm going to do my loop body one time, then I'm going to test my condition to see if I'm going to perform my loop body again. So I'll always do it at least one time. We're going to change this to say that this is the post-test loop. Save and run. And you'll notice that we run our loop body one time, and then it exits because we no longer meet that value. Counter is greater than or equal to 5. We exit out. Now we also have a counting loop. In Java, this is the for loop, and it works identically to how it would work in like C or C++. You can specify for int I equal to 0, I is less than, and I'm going to pick names. Now, what is it about names? Because names is an array, so I can't really use names. But what I can do is say names.length. Remember, names, because it's an array, has a set of values associated with it, both properties and methods that I can use. So this is just saying, hey, I don't have to know how big names is. All I have to do is get names.length. Put a semicolon and then I++. I'm going to specify names at I. And I just use little square brackets with the I for my index. My index starts at 0 and goes up to 1 minus length, which this for loop handles for me perfectly. If I run this, you're going to notice it puts the names one at a time on each line, which is exactly what you would expect. Now, this will work no matter what the data type is, and it actually makes it very easy to move between data types. So, for example, I have an array of numbers, which is of type int. Well, because my numbers is an array and objects tend to behave the exact same way, I have that length property. And now all I have to do is just change the name and run, and you'll notice that it prints out 10 zeros. Why zeros? Well, if I don't initialize the array with a set of values, then I get 0 for my default value if I'm dealing with a numeric number. Strings, obviously, so that can be 0. That's going to be different. You notice I didn't have to change anything with my array. All I had to do was change the name. Despite the fact it was a different size, it was a different data type, it makes it very, very easy to work with. And that's one of the nice things about working with arrays and loops inside of Java. In our next video, we're going to look at the for each loop, which is good and a little bad. We're going to have to see some differences with it and how it works and if it's going to really help us or not. If you like this video, please give it a like. Just let me know that you're enjoying this type of content and you're learning something from it. Consider subscribing so you can see more videos on learning how to program.